Hi everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Model A build. If you remember when we left you the last time, we had put the firewall in, put the new cowl cover on, put the cowl sides back on the car. And we had mentioned that we had to try the motor in it before we did any finish up welding or anything like that. Well, unfortunately, even though this is a new firewall and it's dropped back 4 inches, 4 inches wasn't quite enough. So we're going to have to make some adjustments to the firewall. We'll move this. This is the firewall that we had in it, and this is a 4-inch inset. Well, the valve covers unfortunately hit right about in here. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, make some new curves, and change a few things. Unfortunately, as you can see, this is an 8-cylinder Hemi motor out of a 56 DeSoto, and you can actually only see 3 spark plugs. So we're going to have to move that firewall back a little bit, make a few adjustments, and then we'll put it back in. We'll probably do that in one of the next couple episodes. We'll have some adjustments made to it and have it ready to go. Kerry, what are you planning on doing today here?
So, because we got to move the firewall back and everything, what I want to do today is we're going to take this off, we're going to take the door off, and there's some rust spots down in here. So we're actually going to cut these out, show you how to make some patch panels just kind of with home tools type thing where you don't have to have like a shrinker stretcher, English wheel or anything like that. Now some of the other patch panels will actually use that stuff on just because we have to and it makes it a lot quicker. But if you don't have those tools, it's handy to know how to actually make these patch panels nicely and without expensive tools.
All right, let's get the door off.
Okay.
If you look here, there's a little bit of rust down here. Not super bad, but we'll just clean this up and we'll put a little piece in here, and then we'll run our piece going up here. So, and the bottom is rusty. And what we'll do is we'll just make this piece and bend it so it's all in one piece. Then we'll weld it all back together and we'll be set and ready to go. I've always made a template. It's easier to cut cardboard than it is to cut steel. So what we'll normally do is I'll hold this up here, we'll get a nice straight line, I'll hold it up here, then Kerry will go down the back of this and get a configuration of what it's supposed to be, and then we'll cut it exactly the way it's supposed to be and then bend this underneath and then trim it the way we have to. But a lot of times to try to trim steel and stuff to fit nice, we butt weld everything so the metal is just welded. If you have 2 pieces of metal, when you butt weld, it's merely taking the 2 pieces of metal like that and welding them together. A lot of people will put a seam here and then it slides underneath and then you weld it together. I don't like to do that. A lot of times it'll end up coming back years later. If you butt weld it like this, you're actually melding the metal together and it'll give you a much better seam, much stronger seam, and it'll stay that way for the length of the car.
Oh, and so the cardboard that we're using too, I wanted to explain this as well while he kind of draws that up. So we bought this roll from pretty much any local hardware store or whatever, and it's perfect. It was like $20 or something, and it's a pretty decent sized roll, and we use it for all kinds of stuff. And the cool thing about this stuff is chipboard. You can fold it wherever you want to make like a fold in something, and it stays like that.
All right, as you can see, there's a pattern here on the back that I'll cut now and we'll be okay right here. If you're replacing a spot like this, you're better off to cut up above it and over beside it, because there's probably rust right around in here too that's on its way out. So you're better off to replace all this now while you have the opportunity. So rather than just kind of piecemeal it in 2 little pieces, we're just going to cut the whole bottom out, and then we'll be set and ready to go. So we're probably going to go up to about here. So I'll just put a mark there. And I'll put this where I want it.
We should probably fix that sub rail first.
And I'll put a little mark here. Okay, I'm going to trim this just a hair more. It's a little bit too wide. So we'll trim this just a hair more. All right, so we got this pretty close. So Kerry will come over here and he'll draw a line around this cardboard to give us a base to actually cut the piece out.
And you can see, so this goes on the outside of the cardboard. So when you actually go to weld or cut it out, you're going to want to cut on the inside of the black lines. That's all right, there's nothing there anyways.
No, there's nothing to cut. Okay.
Yipper.
All right, so now Kerry can cut that out. I'll lay this on a piece of sheet metal. So we're going to go ahead now. I've made the pattern, so we've got a piece of metal here, and we're going to go ahead and draw the pattern out. Just trace it onto the metal. All right, I'm going to go out just a tad on this side. I just want to be a little bit further out on that other side. So. One thing to remember when you do this too, if for some reason you're doing this on a car that's still together and it has glass and the windshield and stuff in it, make sure you always cover that stuff. This is hot metal as it comes off, and if you're not careful, as Kerry knows, you'll grind something and you'll actually pit the glass in the car.
I don't know what he's talking
So
about.
you've got to be careful when you do this. Well, and there are guards that come on those.
Yeah.
That one has been removed because we had to get into a spot that the guard was stopping us from cutting it out. So there is supposed to be a metal guard on there. You shouldn't really ever take those off. We're actually going to make a whole new bracket here that bends down and actually bolts on here. But we'll do that from all that from the inside. We'll just cut this bracket off, form a new one, and then make it and then weld it all together once it's done. But you can see this was rusted pretty bad here. This piece is pretty much gone. So this should actually go to that piece inside. It should meet the sub rail here inside. So we'll get all this formed up and then get it welded in. And if you notice here too, this piece right here comes down a little bit, and it does that for a little bit of a distance. Right here's where the sub rail meets. So we'll also have to make a small piece that comes over to this sub rail. We'll cut it right here, and then make a small piece that comes over to meet. Here you can see I can put my finger in that gap. So we'll also make a piece to go in here before we weld this outer chunk on. So.
Here, Let me clean the metal around it too.
Yeah, one thing you want to make sure you do, weld doesn't like to stick to dirty metal, okay? So it's going to spit and spatter when you're trying to weld to dirty metal. You always want nice, fresh, clean metal. So Carrie will grind all this around here so it's nice and clean and smooth, so when we start to weld, the weld will adhere to it nice and neat and will be set and ready to go. So, and as you can see, that piece fits in there just about perfectly. Then once we get this ground, then we'll go ahead and figure out where we've got to put our bend here at the bottom. Put a nice little bend down at the bottom and we'll be set and ready to go.
All right, so that was using the whizzer wheel, and you know, you can use this to clean all the sheet metal and stuff with, but it's easier to use something different, something a little bit less abrasive, because this will leave grind marks in it that you'll see even once you primer it or paint it.
And they make it in different grits. You can get it to a finer grit too. We use the little heavier grit.
This is 50, 36, 24, and I think you can get and like a maroon Scotch-Brite. So, and some it carries them in all the different grits and stuff, and they work really, really well.
And we use them a lot too when we're grinding welds after it's welded up. We can use that bigger electric one with a wheel, a flapper wheel on it, or we can use that to narrow it down.
So what we could do, instead of making 10 relief cuts here, you could cut right down this line, bend it where it's straight, and then fold that up to the line. And then you'd have one weld right there. All right, you're up, Terrence.
All right, what we're going to do is this has, if you look at this, this isn't a real 90-degree bend. It's got a tad of a curve. So rather than bend this part on the anvil, which is going to be pretty much a 90-degree, I'm going to use one of these metal bars right here, and we're going to bend it over this metal bar.
So a good thing to invest in is a good body hammer, because we have a ton of different ones, and a lot of the same ones that are just different handles and stuff. But Martin Tool, who we carry at Summit, makes some of the best ones you can get. They make wood handle ones, and they make these fiberglass handle ones. These ones are really, really nice because when you hit on them, they actually absorb the concussion of hitting the metal and everything. So it's a lot less stress on you, a lot less stress on the handle as well, because these tend to get the little notch here popped out, and these get loose, but with the fiberglass ones, they don't quite get that bad. So.
All right, what I'm going to do is I clamp this on here, and I'm just going to tap this over with this to get it's a little bit of a curve there. And as you can see, instead of a straight 90, we've got a little bit of curve. I used it to form it over that metal rod. So that's going to be much more like what we need for the bottom here.
And then with the rest of the curve, we can form it once we weld it. I can form it with a grinder.
What we'll do is just move this back. And we'll bend it a little bit. We'll grind it a little bit, then we'll weld it up. And as you see, that lines up just about perfectly. So we'll do a little trimming and shaving here, and we can start putting it together. All right, put it up at the top. Nice. All right, that's good enough just to show. All right. So there we have it pretty much in place. We'll tweak it a little bit and hammer and dolly the bottom here just to make sure everything fits perfectly, but that's what we're going to have when we start welding it in. So I want to make this lower lip right here yet. We've got to make a little piece down here to make this fit properly. We'll put this piece in first so that this is stable when we do it. So Carrie, you may want to go ahead and get this little piece in here made. Just get that little chunk there, you don't need much. You put that piece in there, Carrie, that'd probably be all right. Because it's cracked more than rusted, it's just got a crack there. So here, just you cut this piece.
Cut that and mark it. You cut that with the trimmers, I'll cut the... Hand tin snips are also a nice, handy tool too.
This piece out.
Everything's bare metal on the car, but there's still not a lot of good spots to put the clamp on ground cable. So we actually make these. These are actually a new product too. These are really cool. They're Summit Racing magnetic ground clamps. So they have a piece in here that'll go to the metal on the body, which will help ground it, and then you just clamp your ground on right here and you're set. These things are actually really cool, and it's a great idea, whoever made them. So, and you can stick it pretty much anywhere.
Do it quick. As you can see, we butted that metal right up, and we'll hammer and dolly and make sure it's perfectly even. It's a little warm. Make sure it's perfectly even here, and then we'll move this piece where we have to have it to get it to fit exactly the way we want, and then we'll tack it all back together. So I'm just going to grind this off. Just there's a little nub here. Okay, then Carrie can go ahead and complete welding that in, and we'll have everything done. Wait, I'll hold that back a little bit. Let's get... All right, then it's just a matter, when you weld this, you always want to do spot welds. You don't want to just weld it in, just do a continuous here, continuous there, continuous there. Because if it's a bigger panel, especially like here, if you do that, you'll end up buckling the metal because it gets too hot. So what you do is you put a spot here, a spot here, a spot here, a spot here, and just fill it in until you're done. Then you grind it and you're finished. So.
All right guys, so what I'm gonna do, Pops went in to go to work. I'm gonna finish welding this up, and then I'm gonna make this little piece, and then I'll get this all tacked on, and then we'll do some montage of getting welded on and ground and down and everything. So, all right. All right, so while doing this, I noticed it's bulged out a little bit right there. right, so there's that piece. And with this, I'm not actually gonna grind it yet until I get the other pieces made and everything, but that'll get ground out too. So now we need to make this little piece down in here to connect to the subframe. So this is just going to be a real tiny piece. It's just to kind of get rid of that rusty, gnarled, twisted up piece. So as you can see, it's literally this little piece right here. All right, so that works. So then once we get the outer piece in, there's a gap here where I'll just make a nice little piece that just kind of tapers off up into this section of this piece. So just to kind of finish it off real nice. So this is the worst part about doing this stuff. It's a lot of trimming and fitting and you want these pieces absolutely like perfectly flush, right? It sucks because when you're welding, you're not going to stick your finger there to make sure it's flush. So what I do is I get a bigger screwdriver and you get the big flat one. That way you can go like this and you can tell that that's flush now right there. So then I can put my tack on it. Then you just keep moving down. So there we go. We got kind of pretty nice looking little patch panel there. So get this corner fitting right. You can see it's not going to go in flush. It needs to come up a little bit. So we get to beat on it a little bit with the hammer. Or if you don't have a screwdriver, you can also use your hammer. All right, so there you have it. You got it all tacked in pretty good. There we go. See that? Just cut it, made a little bit more extra room there so it can close up that gap and bring this up and give it more of a curve again. So now, next thing to do, if you guys want to watch, we'll go ahead and weld this bad boy up. All right, boys and girls, there you have it. So that's all of that welded up. And so I'm going to put this out there now, but before everybody decides to, jump on the welds and say that they're crap or whatever, we aren't trained welders. We aren't licensed welders, whatever. We're just, my dad and I are both just two guys that taught ourselves how to weld, bought a welder, and figured it out along the way. So, you know, I don't think we're that bad for doing body work and doing it on the side. So we'll get this ground and see what she looks like. All right, so there she is, all ground down and everything. Next thing we'll do is we'll put a light behind it and not see anything because I forgot there's panel inside there. But if you could see stuff out of here, you'd see that there are some pinholes, like right there. You don't know if that's actually one or not, but it's gonna get welded. There's one there, there. That's about it. That's actually not too bad. So what we'll do with them is tack them. There you have it. It's our new piece. Now, off camera, I will weld all this in. So we'll get that all finished up, and then hopefully we'll do some more patch panels and see how it goes. You know, a flat patch panel is pretty cut and dry, but with something like this, we had to make different pieces inside, outside. You know, and that was the biggest challenge for today, is just figuring out what all we needed to do, what needed to go on first, what needed to go on second, and so on and so forth. Hope you enjoyed it. Keep watching, and yeah, see you next time.